As this big fight approaches, my opinion on it keeps changing one way to the other way. And on this video, I'm going to talk all about why I believe this fight is very exciting and entertaining, and why you should be excited for it too. And also, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my prediction, which I'm sure will shock some of you. But during the video, I'm going to talk about some big deciding factors in the fight that I think will happen, and that could just make you agree with my pick of the winner at the end. I'm also going to talk about just how much money this fight will generate and how much the fighters should make. And my name's Tony Jeffries. I'm an Olympic medalist boxer. I had 106 fights in my career. I was also a head trainer of Brendan Schaub when he was a top 10 UFC competitor. So I've got some experience in the boxing and MMA world as well. Now, the last time Jake Paul fought a Nate, this happened. But that Nate was a basketballer, whereas this Nate Diaz is a straight up killer. One of the toughest men in MMA history. So what we just seen there with that one punch knockout is probably not going to happen. Now, whether you like Jake Paul or not, he is one of the biggest names in boxing. I would probably say in the top 3 in the world right now. Even Nate Diaz said outside of Canelo Alvarez, Jake is the biggest draw in boxing. Now, even though when Jake fought a real boxer in his last fight, he lost that fight, people should stop saying Jake's not even a real boxer, because I tell you what, mate, he is a real boxer. But people will just say, well, he's just fighting washed up MMA fighters. How can you say he's a real boxer? But let me put my different angle on it that will change the tone in your voice. I want you to think about this the next time you're slagging off Jake Paul and his opponents. I won an Olympic medal. I won a European gold medal. I won 7 national titles. And then I turned professional and I was undefeated in 10 professional fights. And I can say that Nate Diaz is way better than any professional boxer that I've fought. Even though I had all of that experience, when I turned professional, I wasn't fighting anyone on Nate Diaz's level. And when I look from the outside looking in, Jake is just a, 7-8 fight novice boxer, really. And with Nate as his opponent right now, at where he's at, I think it's kind of the perfect matchup for him, considered everything that's going on. So to say he's not fighting real boxers, mate, there's thousands of real boxers out there that couldn't even tie Nate Diaz's boots. And if Jake Paul was to fight one of them guys on his 7th professional fight, like people like Olympic medalists fight on their 7th professional fight, imagine the shit you will get then. Now, Nate Diaz left the UFC in September. He's a proper legend in the MMA world. He's known for his endurance and his resilience and just how tough he really is. And his biggest win was against Conor McGregor, that you probably will know of. And out of the 33 fights he had in MMA, even though he was fighting some real killers, he got TKO'd only 1 time. And that was like 10 years ago by a head kick. But let me tell you, this guy can really take a punch. And he's as tough as they come. He's often in really exciting fights with blood all over his face, which could be a huge problem, but I'm going to talk about in a minute. And unlike Jake's last opponent, Tommy Fury, who had never fought on a big stage like this before, Nate's used to this. He's fought on the biggest stages, headlining pay-per-view events multiple times, and that doesn't seem to faze him at all. Whereas Tommy Fury, even though Jake lost, that could have been a factor in his performance. Nate Diaz is also known for his boxing ability in the UFC, and he sparred with some high-level professional boxers, including Andre Ward, who he says he learned a lot off when he was sparring with him. And Andre Ward, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters of all time. So that's great to have that experience being in the ring with someone like him. But I've got a feeling that was years ago, so I don't know how much of that experience is still kind of fresh in his mind. But now let's talk about the size difference. Nate is 6 foot tall, where Jake is 1 inch taller at 6'1". And when it comes to the weight, Nate usually fights at around 170 pounds compared to Jake's last fight, which is 184 pounds. So that's a big weight difference. And now this fight is going to be matched at 185 pounds. So that's a big weight advantage for Jake Paul, because let me tell you, that 14-pound difference is a lot. Now, how do you think this fight is going to sell? And I think very well. Nate Diaz has a massive following, a massive fan base. He's got 6.3 million followers on Instagram alone. Then Jake Paul's got something like 23, 24 million. And I don't need to talk about how popular Jake is with these other platforms. He's got millions there as well. And even though they both know how to sell fights, with the first press conference that happened, I wasn't that impressed. I wanted to see a lot more pushing, shoving, bad mouthing each other. So hopefully in the next press conference that will happen. Now back to the money. So Jake's last fight against Tommy Fury supposedly had around 800,000 pay-per-view buys. And as of numbers, I believe that this fight will do more than the last fight, as now it's got the MMA crowd in as well. And Nate Diaz is a way bigger name than Tommy Fury, because no one would have really heard of Tommy Fury if it wasn't for his brother Tyson, and that's kind of what sold the fight. But Nate Diaz, real killer, got a huge fan base. Now let's just say, for numbers' sake, if this does 200,000 more pay-per-views buys than the last one, it does 1 million. Now I'm totally guessing the numbers here, I might be way off, but let's just say that's what it is. And the pay-per-view was $60 each. That's $60 million just from the pay-per-view. And now, even though Nate's got all this experience in MMA, this is going to be by far the biggest earner that he's ever had. And he's getting a 50-50 split. So I would hope that he would try and sell the fight even more, because I'm really excited for the build-up. Now, after watching that first press conference, I was a little bit, not half as good as Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul, or Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz, or even Tyrone Woodley versus Jake Paul. So let's hope they pick it up for the build-up, because, you know, he's going to get so much money. And now, before I give you my prediction, I just want to say, on this channel, I regularly give boxing education videos showing you how to do different techniques in boxing. Let me know this in the comments below. Would you like me to do more videos like this of fight breakdowns? Would you like me to do a follow-up video of this one where I get in the ring with someone and break down the different techniques of Jake and Nate and talk about game plans and strategies? I'd love to know in the comments below. Okay, my prediction. Okay, let's talk about the advantages of both of these guys. Nate Diaz has way more experience of fighting than Jake Paul. Being in the ring, been in the cage 33 times, and he's been around boxing and MMA for years. Nate's toughness is definitely one of his biggest strengths. He's got to be the toughest guy Jake Paul has ever been in there with. He's just one hard man. Endurance for Nate is a huge factor in this. He's resilient. He goes on and on and on. He's got an engine for days. And when you're in the ring with someone who's tough as nails and got an engine for days, that's hard for their opponent. Another big advantage for Nate, he's a southpaw. If you know boxing, being in the ring with the southpaw is horrible. Everything goes to pot because they're leading off with their right hand rather than the left hand. So that is an advantage right there, being a southpaw. Now moving on to Jake's advantages. His activity. Jake has been way more active, having 7 fights in just 3 years, whereas Nate's only had 3 fights in 4 years. Activity is huge in boxing for your timing, your stamina, your experience, and everything else. Age. Jake Paul is only 26, which is 12 years younger than Nate Diaz, who's 38. My age. And that age can play a big factor in this. The weight and the size. Jake's got a huge advantage with the size difference. He's more of a natural 185. And whereas Nate's been used to fighting smaller guys at 170, so the strength in there will play a big part. Anderson Silva, that's an advantage for Jake. Nate is a southpaw, which is one of his advantages, but Jake handled Anderson Silva pretty well and beat him. So he's got experience with good high-level southpaws and beating them as well. And the question I've got for you guys before I give you my prediction is, do you think Nate Diaz would beat Anderson Silva at 185 pounds in a boxing match? Do you? Well, I'd love to know in the comments below. Now, my prediction. In an MMA fight, Nate Diaz, one of his strengths is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a black belt there. No one wants to go on the floor with him. They would rather stand with him. And I think he's a decent boxer, but when you're in the ring with someone who doesn't dare come close to you because you're afraid of you taking them down, even if they're not a good boxer, I think that makes you look like a better boxer than you are, if that makes sense. In this fight, Jake doesn't mind getting up close with him like this and fighting inside. In an MMA fight, no one wants to get this close to Nate. He's going to take you down and choke you and submit you because he's a stud at jiu-jitsu. Now, maybe I'm wrong in thinking that, but I think that's one of the big reasons why he had the success in the stand-up game in MMA, because people are scared to get him to the ground. Now, if I'm just judging his boxing in an octagon and thinking of him as a boxer, honestly, I'm not that impressed with the boxing ability. As an MMA fighter, yes, but as a boxer, no. Now, I know it's different when you're in the cage in MMA. You've got lots more things to think about than just the stand-up, so maybe that's why his stand-up hasn't been that impressive. Along with that is how easy Nate Diaz cuts. He's got scar tissue all over his face, and when you've had a cut before and then it heals and it builds scar tissue, you don't have to get hit hard on that scar tissue for that to rip open and for your face to pour of blood. I know this myself because I've been cut multiple times on my face. In MMA, they'll let you fight on when you've got blood on your face like this, but in boxing, that fight will get stopped straight away. And that is my prediction. I think Jake Paul's going to stop Nate Diaz in around 3 or 4 rounds with cuts. I think that scar tissue after a few jabs is going to burst, blood everywhere. Nate's going to get hit more times than he's been hit before in a fight because now it's stand-up. Now, this was a pretty serious video. Now, if you want to watch something more fun and enjoyable, click here and watch this next, where I show you some crazy social media boxing training that will blow your mind. Click here and watch this next.